Hello friends, welcome to the session on Labour Law Reforms in India, the Code on Wages 2019. This session has four objectives. First, to deliberate on the related constitutional provisions and legislation. Second, to provide an understanding of the context, overview and implication of a Code on Wages 2019. Third, to discuss the key features of the Code on Wages 2019. And finally, to discuss the implications of a wage code on the labour market. The key themes and issues to be discussed in this session are such as constitutional provisions and legislation, overview and implication of a code on wages, the key features of the code on wages and implication of the wage code on labour market. To begin with, the Constitution of India guarantees fundamental right to every citizen, including the right to life. According to Supreme Court of India, the right to livelihood is inherent in the right to life. Part 4th of the Constitution of India contains the directive principles of state policy, which lay down goalpost and direction of a state policy. Article 41, 42, 43 and 43A of the Constitution falling under Part 4th of the Constitution pertain to the labour law and its welfare. In the Indian context, as per the scheme of Indian Constitution, labour law being in the concurrent list, which means the exercise can be carried out by both the central and the state governments. The Union Cabinet has approved 4 labour laws. The first is the Code on Wages. It has been approved by the Parliament. The second code is on occupational safety, health and working condition. It has also been introduced in Lok Sabha and later on sent to a standing committee for review. The third code is on the industrial relation. It has also been introduced in Lok Sabha. And the fourth one is the Social Security Code 2019 that has been approved by the Union Cabinet. Now let us deliberate on the Code on Wages 2019. Why there is a need for national level minimum wage? A national level minimum wage is required to protect workers from unduly low pay, that is to ensure fair distribution, reduce excessive wage and income inequalities. A wage policy is required to overcome poverty and reduce inequality, that is to raise the levels of pay for the millions of workers around the world. A wage policy is required to overcome gender inequality, to basically buttress consumption as a key pillar of sustainable economies. Hence, a wage policy is required to ensure a just and equitable share of the fruits of progress. Let us now try to understand how the scheme has been evolved over a period of time, especially the wage policy. Minimum wage policy started as early as 1929 with the Royal Commission on Labour, culminating in the Payment of Wages Act 1936. Minimum Wage Act came into force in 1948, set a framework for fixing minimum wage in certain employments, first developing the country to adopt such a legislation. Absence of a criteria in the Minimum Wage Act 1948 to determine minimum wages has been filled by the Indian Labour Conference 1957 and Supreme Court 1992 recommendations providing guidelines for the purpose. In 1988, Labour Ministers Conference took the decision that minimum has to be linked with the consumer price index for industrial workers to address changes in the cost of living over time. In 1996, the national floor level minimum wages, a non-binding national minimum wage, implemented to address wage disparities in various scheduled employments within and across states. The present national floor level minimum wage stands at Rs 176 per day. The wage policy is one of the complex wage system in the world. There are too many wage rates, 429 scheduled employments, 1915 scheduled job categories. There is a limited coverage, only 66% of the workers were covered. The wage is quite low and there is wide variation in rates within and across provinces. Principal wages in some cases set below the national floor. There is multiplicity of authorities, lack of uniform definition, high compliance requirements, and hence the cost of doing business in India. Now let us look into the minimum wage debate. intense debate about a minimum wage policy over the past decades has considered the introduction of a binding national wage policy for all the workers. In August 2019, the Code on Wages enacted, consolidated 4 acts and provides for a binding wage floor with the option to have regional minimum wages. India Wage Report 2018 shows low pay and low inequality remain a serious challenge to India's path towards achieving decent working conditions and inclusive growth. An expert committee was constituted in 2018 to review wage fixation criteria and principles to move towards realizing an adequate minimum wage for all workers. Economic Survey 2019 called for designing minimum wage system for inclusive growth. The Code on Wages 2019 has received presidential assent on 8th August 2019. However, the code is yet to be effective, draft rules yet to be finalized and notified. 4 wage acts has been subsumed into one code, such previous acts, namely the Payment of Wages Act 1936, the Payment of Bonus Act 1965, the Minimum Wage Act 1948, the Equal Remuneration Act 1976. All these 4 wage acts have been subsumed into one code. The Code on Wages seeks to regulate wage and bonus payments in all employments where any industry, trade, business or manufacturing is carried out. This code has 9 chapters, 67 sections and 28 definitions of constantly used terms. This intends to promote equality and labor welfare and sustainability of enterprises, thereby catalyzing the economic growth and creation of employment opportunities. Main features of the Code of Wages Bill: it basically tries to universalize provision of minimum wages, tries to remove multiplicity of definitions and authorities, change the role of inspector to facilitator to guide and advise employers and workers. It ensures timely wage payment to all employees. Ease of compliance will be to incentivize setting up more enterprise, thus more opportunities. Now let us try to understand the implications of the Code on Wages on the worker. It universalizes legal right to get wages not less than minimum wages and timely payment of wages to all employees across sectors. It introduces the concept of binding floor wage, that is, states cannot fix wages below floor, thus it will help address low wages and regional disparity in minimum wages. It reduces the existing number of minimum wages, which will facilitate an effective enforcement and improved compliance. Rationalization proposed in the code will demand states to reduce their minimum wage rates, maximum 12 wage rates per state. This code provides one definition of wage, unlike the various definitions that were found in previous acts, subject to various interpretation. Timely payment of wages to all, irrespective of wage ceiling, sectors or establishments, provides for wage settlement within 2 working days, that is after the post removal, dismissal and retrenchment. 50 crore workers are going to be benefited under the Wage Code Bill 2019. Now let us try to understand the implications of the Code on Wages on the employer. It will enhance and help in ease of doing business, reduction in compliance burden through simplification, rationalization and amalgamation. It will help in hassle-free compliance, unique online registration, submission of returns, records and obtaining licenses. This will lead to transparency and accountability in enforcement. With this, I come to an end of the session on labor law reforms in India, the Code on Wages 2019, and leave you with few questions which you will find easy. Thanks for watching this video.